This is fresh from gluing. The glue is set. The excess has been trimmed. All the edges have been beveled downward. All the excess smearing and of the glue is gone. We still have the set screws. I've made marks for where all the rivets are going to go. Another set screw that has to come out, and of course one in the door jamb. Here's the goal for this panel. The left-hand side has been smoothed down. This is shaped in 80 grit. This needs a little bit more blocking, and I can literally prime it. And once it's primed, another session of blocking with a finer grit, and then it's within sight of paint. Here's the door jamb. See how messy that was from before in the previous videos? Now it's really cleaned up. So let's get this right side just like the left side. So the next step in this whole process would be to rivet the panel. These are going to be another form of keeping this fender permanently onto this car. The rivets help keep the shifting from heat. As the car heats up, just sitting in the sun or going through the paces, metal heats at one rate, the fiberglass heats at another rate. So there's this constant shifting. The rivets will help anchor down that movement, at least every few inches or so apart. So that's why I like to rivet and glue. It's just two forms of security. Keeps everything in place, and they work together in one way or another. The glue, obviously, there's a kind of a chemical bond going on. Now we have a physical bond of a rivet. So here's the tools I'm going to use. Let's just say we're going to start with the screw hole and again with the rest of the holes. Screwdriver, fluted point for a countersunk, 40 grit roll lock, 1/8 inch drill bit, and of course the rivet tool. And here's the key rivet here. Take a look at this here. This is something I've found I didn't know existed until a few years ago. Take a good look at the label. Countersunk head. So just to show you, let's see if we get a dark background here. It's probably the best I can get right there. The underside of this head here has a countersunk, and this top side here is completely flat. Unlike conventional rivets are reversed. Here is a conventional rivet. See if I can rotate that. You see there's a slight dome on the top. I guess side by side. Here you can see a little bit. You can see on the bottom that's the countersunk rivet, and the top is the standard rivet. So the top rivet, that would obviously be for applying onto a flat surface. But in this case, we need to hide the rivet underneath a little bit of filler work. So we'll start with this hole for an example. Obviously, I'm going to remove the screw. Then I'm going to drill it with an 1/8 inch drill bit just to clear it out and make sure it's obviously an 1/8 inch of hole. Then I'll take the 40 grit roll lock, and I'm actually going to bevel this area, depress this entire area, probably about the size of between a dime and a nickel. And then I'll do the countersunk and then the rivet. And the reason why I do that little dime size depression, that gives a kind of a, you know, dimpled hole, a hole that's not so harsh where the body filler can go over and fill it in. You see, if you fill over a sharply cut hole, that circular shape will eventually show through the bodywork. So I guess let me knock this out and I'll show you what I mean. Okay, so now that we have the surrounding area beveled down, the countersunk done, 1/8 inch hole drilled through, and then the countersunk rivet put in, here is what I am trying to achieve here. This is just a straight edge. This will show you a little bit of relief again surrounding the area. This is this thin gap that you see here between the two. This is where the filler is going to go. This is what's going to keep it from showing. And of course you see the deeper hole in the center. That will help fill and keep that bodywork from popping out. And of course proper prep always helps. There's nothing wrong with taking a roll lock and then kind of beveling the backside of this head here. That will help the filler fill in. See this sharp edge here? That can also be treated a little bit more with the roll lock. So if it ever has to show up like this, which it does in some angles, going back over that edge, nothing wrong with that. But this is something that most people will never see that don't normally do body work. Rivets are all set. In these, I guess you can call it a high stress corner, where if I had put that one rivet, well, that only one rivet is physically holding this down. So I went ahead and put 1, 2, 3 just to hold this corner down. Another example of where I put multiple rivets in one area, well, corners like this, that's an example. This little tab here, there's one, but on the jam side I put 2 in that one little corner, only because, well, if the bodywork does break out, well, I only have to worry about 1. There's 2 in the door jamb right where a seal bumps up to. You know, that's not going to bother anyone if the bodywork isn't even perfect. Down here, there's 2 rivets. This is a high stress area. If you can see, this still has some flex, but obviously it's isolated right in this small area. Eventually there will be a brace that keeps this rigid, but for now I'll know that there's 2 rivets in here to keep it from shifting. This is going to, underneath is going to get bonded in, smoothed out, flush, just like the other side. On these open areas here where I know there's a ton of glue, a rivet for every 5 4 inches is fine. Again, the seam is going to be hidden underneath the window seal, so the glue on this small panel here is enough. And here's those dime-sized bevels I had mentioned. I think it's a little easier that there's gel coat. There's nothing wrong with going back over it. And you see I kind of hit the head of that rivet a little bit. Took the coarse shape of the drill out. See how that kind of cleans it up. All this adds up into smoother bodywork, or smoother bodywork process. That there I'll kind of ramp up just because that's about a 1/2 inch of just blending from this transition to this. So I'm going to knock this down to almost paper thin. This here will be all these little bit of high spots you see will be knocked down. Now what you are seeing is these black lines. This is from the Sharpie marker. I will always grind off the marks after I'm done with it. Sharpie marker does have some kind of chemical that kind of reacts to paint. I've seen Sharpie marker bleed through paint where the line shows up after you paint over it. So I'm going to grind that off just to be on the safe side, and it's just a simple extra step. I'll take this grinder, knock it out, so on. And of course that will help me find some gel coat bubbles. Hopefully that's not one. No. Good. Alright, now it's time to rough it up. I'll rough all of this panel, at least up to here. All of this, all of this, all of that. This is already roughed up. I need to rough up the surrounding area here. Get it ready for body work. All beveled down, prepped with 40 grit. Let's wipe all the seams here. I'm actually going to wipe this pretty thick, and I'll just shape it down. I like to do little sections at a time. So we have that wiped down. Then we'll go to next. And once I'm done wiping this, as I did this side, as I finish this off with the initial coat, this should have kicked off to where I can cheese grate it lightly just to get that shaped out. So while I'm doing this, this will cure and I can start on this tail. And by the time I've wiped this, this would be cured. So it's a constant movement. The seams have been wiped down with U-Pol Vibral Light fiberglass filler. This is to fill in all the big gaps, the transition from the fiberglass fender to the steel, the blending from this pillar down to the wide body, and of course this seam that goes underneath the quarter glass. The door jamb is also wiped down. All these rivets are covered in, but as you can see, huge difference that this filler makes. Let's go over here to this tail end. That cap is wiped down. I ended up doing a little bit of light shaving, got a little ahead of this video. But as you can see, this is the first coat. As you can see, the first coat shaped down with the cheese grater, a little bit of 40 grit, and you can see how much of a difference that makes. We are within reach of blocking this smooth with 80 grit. This little corner here, you just jam fiberglass into it. The fiberglass filler. Let that cure. Knock it down with the cheese grater. And this is the result. I'll do another heavy wipe on this here just to cover that transition and allow me to shape the transition from here into this panel. This is a tough one, I'll admit, because you have all these window seals. I've covered it here. Even though I'm replacing this, I just want to know where my limits are and to get this thing flush with the body. This here, a little bit easier transition, and of course this here has to stay within the stock shape, because again the rubber seal mates onto that. And here's the shaped out form and the heavy filler. That heavy filler being U-Pole Fibro Light. It's a glass filled body filler, and it definitely helped get this transition shaped out. Filled in a few of the dimples, the rivets. The next step would be to go over it with the lightweight filler, which is at USC, that I've been using. That will really tie everything together and bring this panel up to this standard, which is right where I want to get to on both sides. And as soon as we get that matching and blocked out, then we'll start hunting for all the dimples on the side.